I have completed Doom the Dark Ages, and I am noted Hellwraith Jordan Midler from VGC, here with your review Q&A for Doom the Dark Ages. I asked on social media for your questions about Doom, so now I'm going to answer them. Wiley S asks, do you have all your weapons at all times, or are they moving to a kind of loadout model? Almost looks like there are more weapons than usual for a Doom game. So the game doles out weapons to you gradually. It's a prequel, so there's no need to establish that he lost all his weapons in the last game that games tend to do. So you get your stuff gradually, and each weapon has a variation. So say your weapon wheel is 8, it's really 16 because each weapon has a variation. There's no loadout system, you have access to all of your weapons at all times, and the only gate is the progression. But then you can go back into previous levels with new weapons and play them again, because the game operates on a chapter system that's really quite segmented. In fact, after every chapter, the game takes you out of the game and into kind of a chapter menu again. So it tries to encourage going back to previous levels with new weaponry. And although that doesn't typically unlock new things, it can potentially change up some of the some of the combat challenges. And also there are weapon challenges for each weapon that are required for the Platinum Trophy, and some customization stuff. So that's kind of how the weapon system works in Doom the Dark Ages. Cheesepuff says, Doom 2016 and Eternal are pretty different games. Does Doom the Dark Ages fall closer to one or the other? Or is it different enough that comparison is not meaningful? It's far closer to Doom 2016. I'm in the camp that I think 2016 is a much better game. Eternal's fine, but I think they got away from what made that first game so special, and Dark Ages goes back to that and feels like a sequel to that rather than the third game in a series. It's slower than Eternal, obviously, because Eternal was so movement focused and platform focused. Doom the Dark Ages is much more kind of stand and bang, to use MMA parlance, like the original game. The glory kill system, there's less of an emphasis on it because it's slightly different this time. It's not canned animations, it can happen kind of from any angle. But yeah, it's much closer to the first game in both quality and content, in my opinion. Lindsay Love asks, with the emphasis on melee even more prevalent, what are some of the changes we can expect for ranged weapons? So the melee system basically boils down to the Doomslayer has several melee weapons, like a gauntlet and a flail and a few more that haven't been shown. And those are also on an ammo system, so you pick up melee ammo. You can't just do it an unlimited amount of times. And they're powerful attacks, but the more powerful they are, the more ammo they take. So it's usually used in a combination. It shows you early in the game that if you have 3 of your ammo for your melee, you basically collect fists for your melee ammo, and if you have 3 of those, you can do a combo which basically takes one of the stronger enemies down to their finisher state. But a lot of the time, melee is kind of it's a quick way to get a quick kill, or if you feel like you're doing tons of gun damage to one of the bigger enemies, hitting a melee attack can usually be that thing that takes them over into the stunned state. So it's an interesting thing to play with. I think it maybe gets a bit lost because the shield, which we've not spoken about but I speak about a lot in my review, is much more prominent in the kind of combat dance of every encounter. Range weapons don't change too much. Again, it's a supplemental thing, and the battles you're having are usually at such a distance that you're closing the gap between you and the enemy, so there's not a lot of standing very far back. Ranged weapons are more effective when you're kind of kiting a lot of enemies at once. Marcus says, how fun is it to play? Does it elicit giggles and smiles like Doom 2016? Well, it elicited big swear words from me. There are a few moments where you really stop and think this is the kind of game that you would come up with when you were like a 14-year-old hopped up on caffeine. Like, it is so cool. Like, there's no better way to describe it. It's what a teenager would think is the coolest thing in the world, and it really it expands on those wow moments from previous games in a way that is really special and something that you should definitely not seek out, because when they happen, it's really exciting. And yeah, the giggles from the violence, just the sheer amount of violence is certainly still there. You'd think after making the third game they'll have ran out of ways to tear hearts out of things and tear people's heads off, but apparently not. They can still come up with new ones, and they're really a joy to watch. BDAP says, how is the music, and can you remember how it's compared to Doom 2016? Elephant in the room with the two subsequent Doom games, it's not Mick Gordon. The music is still great, it fits the tone well, but it's not Mick Gordon. It is enjoyable but not exceptional, is basically the way I would say it. There are a few tracks that really stand out, and there's a few moments where it's used well in the kind of text of the game, but it's not something that I think people will think about beyond the end of the game. And I don't know if that's entirely fair, because there has been a kind of a bias against the subsequent soundtracks, because people, it's not like a nasty thing, people just really love that Mick Gordon stuff, and obviously that relationship ended the way it ended. So yeah, it's good, it's not amazing. Seahand, how does the story and cutscenes hold up versus past Doom games where they were mostly ignored? So yeah, the game's quite cutscene heavy. It establishes, like, it reminds me, and don't run away when I say this, it reminded me of like the Phantom Menace or something like that, where the start is just setting up this epic war, and then after like 5 minutes of different factions and different races and different alien like factions and governments and stuff, it just cuts to the Doomslayer and he's like, right, let's go on with it, let's rip people's heads off. It's unintrusive. I don't think it's a great story, I don't think it's particularly memorable. The characters are fine, they introduce characters and try to bestow them with importance that they really do not earn, in my opinion. But the main baddie is a total pantomime villain that is fun, and Doom Guy, Doom Slayer as he's known, is a great character in ways that you might not expect. There's a few moments that are just like really held for kind of comedy, and the Doom Guy as this kind of big, unemotive, almost Drax style character is good. So yes, the cutscenes, they look amazing, they're very well animated, they're beautiful, but they are inconsequential. It's not a story that will live long in the memory, at least not as long as kind of the combat encounters, the enemies, the weapons, that kind of thing. Although the last cutscene's pretty good. The ending is pretty, it's Hollywood schlock in it. Ian asks, can you fist bump an action figure version of yourself in this one? There is an action figure version of the Doomslayer in this game, and I will not spoil what you do when you find them, because it's very funny. Bradford Sweater says, I didn't enjoy the home base hub on the spaceship in Eternal. It felt lifeless and took me away from the gameplay I enjoyed. Does Dark Ages have a similar home base? No, it's all mission based. You're always progressing forward. In fact, the game will tell you when you're going through an area and a mission that is a point of no return. So it's full forward. There's no kind of home base hub. You're picking missions from a menu. So all that is completely moved away from all of that stuff. Kevin says, can we expect a Switch 2 version? I would put money on there being a Switch 2 version. Gary Alexander Stott says, how strict is the window on parry timing? Not strict particularly, however, that is one of the many customizations that you can make. There's a really full-fledged suite of accessibility and just gameplay customization options you can make. The different difficulties, of which there's about 7, will assign a parry window for you. But if you're enjoying everything about the difficulty apart from the parry window, you can just customize that element of it. So it's really malleable in that way. I didn't find the parry window difficult at all. It's like, it's not Bloodborne. It's maybe like double the length of Bloodborne. I don't know how you'd you get what I mean though. It's not Jedi Survivor, like you've got 15 weeks to do it, but it's not Bloodborne. You need to know what you're doing. It's in that kind of area. Note says, how's the overall performance? I played on PlayStation 5 Pro and it performs great. Looks great, performs great. There isn't a 120 mode, at least there wasn't when I was playing it. I don't know if that's coming, but the PlayStation 5 Pro experience was fantastic. No real dips. There was one really noticeable hitch when I was transitioning through areas, but when I replayed that level, it didn't happen, so it was just a bit of a hiccup. But no, it performs really well, no issues whatsoever, apart from that one. C says, is the dragon gameplay different from what we've seen in the hands-on demo? Unfortunately not. The dragon is one of 2 kind of like side shows that are in the game. The Atlan mech, which is like a big Doom Megazord, and the dragon levels, which see you fly around a dragon, you do some like kind of pilot wings adjacent Star Foxy kind of dodging and shooting, which is very basic, and then you land in like ships or little bases, clear out those bases, and the dragon catches you. It's very basic. It's it's visually interesting because obviously you're flying about a massive mechanical dragon, and I like the dragon's design and I like the dragon. I think him and the Doom guy's relationship, as kind of minor as it is actually floated in the game, I think is great, and it makes for a good story beat. But no, the dragon gameplay section that I played in Germany a couple of months ago is practically replicated in another section, so no, it's not different whatsoever, and I think it's quite weak. I'm glad they only used it twice. Similarly with the mech, it's fun twice anymore, and I think I would have been at the stage of, are we doing the dragon again? Because it's almost on rails at points. Halo Gaming 08 says, how expansive are the levels? So this is a change for Doom Eternal. There are some pretty open sections of the game where instead of kind of corridor style levels, you're given mini open zones. Imagine them similar to, like, I was thinking something like in the Borderlands games, those games are broken up into a load of zones, which are like smaller open sections. It's kind of that size. They'll often be between 1 and 5 big objectives that are dotted around this map that you have to go and find. Obviously, it's full of secrets as well, and they work well. They're usually just that is the entire level at that point in that open section. They don't overstay their welcome. They're not massively expansive, but I don't think they need to be. I don't think there's much more they could do with the space. I wonder how it would work if they were to do something like Halo Infinite, where it was a really open game, but it kind of reminded me of that. You're using the Doom mechanics, which are very kind of couched in corridor shooting, to go and do something in a more open space, and it makes for interesting encounters, but it's not an open world game by any means, and there isn't tons of them in the game. They split them up with your traditional kind of corridor shooting Doom levels, so it's a good change in one of the better parts of the game. However, I think it's well deployed rather than overused. Cyanide1980, one of our Discord members over on VGC's Discord and a proud Patreon member at patreon.com/videogameschronicle, says, historically, up until Doom 3, the franchise wasn't known for its plot or lore. Having enjoyed the last few entries, does Dark Ages continue with the story? So it's a prequel, so it gets to establish its own story. It establishes story in some ways that it feels like the two subsequent games. If the Dark Ages was released first, you'd think the other two games, why did you let all these story threads go away? But as I say, the story's fine. It's like popcorn nonsense, but it's really just fun to be the Doomslayer and inhabit that world, and it looks brilliant from an art perspective and a performance perspective, but specifically the world you're exploring are really compelling. So yes, the story is fine. Back on the open world sections, Airsats, also from VGC's Discord, says, from the early footage, it's clear that sections are more open than Doom games have been in the past. My question is if these sections are truly open world. Are these maps open-ended with multiple goals and side activities? Are they more like a hub to different key objectives? Are levels simply more horizontally wide or remaining functionally linear? That's something that's difficult to discern from the gameplay videos, only a few minutes in length. So, my example will be the Siege Part 1, which is it's like the 5th level or something like that. You're the other side of a castle wall, and it opens onto a big field, and it'll say there are 5 things that you have to go and shut down. You can go and shut those things down in any order you want to, and once you've done all of those, you return to the castle to finish the level. So everything, there's no side objective per se. You'll have to do everything to finish the level. So yeah, they're quite wide, but not massively deep. The side things are like secret areas, weapon skins, and more money. There's like a gold currency to upgrade your weapons. That's the kind of thing you're finding, and little Easter eggs and bits and pieces like that. But it's mostly that kind of stuff. It's not particularly hub-ish. It's just a few levels that are quite expansive. C says, how many bosses are in the game? So there are bigger bosses towards the end, but most levels will have a champion, which is a souped up version of a normal kind of elite enemy. And he will drop like a health upgrade or an ammo upgrade. There's usually 1 or 2 of those per level. And finally, Lawrence Sontag asks, thanks for watching this review Q&A of Doom The Dark Ages. Check out my full review on VGC and consider supporting us at patreon.com/videogameschronicle. See you next time.